So when you think of gamer, what comes to mind? Like, do you think of, controller? Do you think of computer? Do you think of board game? Do you think of arcade? Like, there's so many, you think of VR. There's so many different ways that someone could be a gamer these days. But for anyone born during the 80s and 90s, like I was born in 86, and so I grew up with going to the arcade because that's what my dad would do whenever he was around to take me and my sister and I. I'm tired. It's early. Anyway, and he never let us have a console at home. Like he's just like it's funny how he had that whole they'll rot your brain kind of logic, but then he'd take us to the arcade, and the only games that my sister and I would play religiously were the fighting games. Um, so anything that came out, Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, any of those kind of things, like as they came out, like those are the types of games that we would get into. I mean, we started with, Super Mario Brothers. We started with, Pac-Man, that sort of thing. He didn't start taking us until we were a bit older. Well, I was a bit older. Um, but those are the types of games that we would get into. And then before our mom took us to Washington State, I did get to play The Lion King on SNES, and oh, if you're like me, it's a love-hate relationship. Like, it's Lion King, but you kind of hate it because it was so difficult. And I know I've looked up, like, why was it so difficult? And they're like, because, they want people to buy it and not rent it. So they thought, well, make it challenging so they'll want to finish it. Of course, many people tried to give up because it was just difficult. But I had a friend in the neighborhood that owned, the console. So we would battle it out. And I did beat it twice. Once on what was considered regular, once on hard, and I had to actually, at the time my dad was giving us allowance, so I actually had to save up my allowance to get a new controller because I broke one of hers, and that was not, yeah. I apologize. I saved up money and got her a new one. Um, it was a lot, but so after like many weeks, um, yeah. But anyway, so like my start was, sneaking over to a friend's house to play on the console, going to the arcade with my dad sometimes. Eventually, like right as I'm about to graduate high school, my dad's like, "Oh, okay, I think I'll get into the console thing and get you guys something. I'll get you an Xbox." Like that was a big deal in 2003, 2004. So, he was like, "Yeah, let's get the Xbox." And because my sister and I had done clogging when I was in middle school, he thought DDR would be fun. It was, but we couldn't do anything less than 4. Like we had to have like speed 4 or higher because like we're so used to like clogging it's not tap, it's not Riverdance, it's based in America. It's its own beast. But there are taps at the bottom, and so we got used to being very fast. So our footwork was very fast. So we couldn't do anything less than at least 4 on, speed for that. But then my dad started like, "Hey, let me get you this, let me get you that." And I would also sneak over to a friend's house during the time that I was living with my mom in Washington State and play Lara Croft. Lots of Super Mario, but like Lara Croft. Now, of course, there are some of the classic, like, Duck Hunt and things like that, and other Pac-Man and Tetris and stuff like that. But, I just started getting into, expanding, like, oh, this is what I like. And I even got into Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. The whole, what is it called? It's like the mouse trap thing. It's not Mousetrap, but it's... Rodent's Revenge, that's what it was. So I got really good at Rodent's Revenge. I was very bad at Minesweeper, but I was really good at Rodent's Revenge. And yeah, I beat Carmen Sandiego as well. I'm not much of a computer gamer. I never really have been, but that was what was available, so that's what I played. Anything with trivia, anything that was very similar to Jeopardy, I loved. I could never be the level of Jeopardy, but I love playing those types of games. Um, and so I really got into that kind of stuff and started expanding more and more. And eventually, as more came out, not just Lara Croft, but like Crash Bandicoot. And so, going on and on. Of course, my sister got into a lot of the same things that I did. So we were mostly console gamers. If we ever went to an arcade, then yeah, we totally did the arcade thing, but mostly it was console. And I remember also growing up playing cards and doing board games with family. And I never considered that really gaming, but I mean it is, right? I mean it's a game and you're playing it. So what if you are just tabletop? Like that's gaming. And of course, tabletop like role playing stuff started way before I was born. And of course has continued, but over time, as I expanded my friendship circles and learning more about different types of games, different kind of characters. I mean, like for the Xbox, we definitely did Soul Calibur and Dead or Alive, and so we did a lot of that kind of stuff too. Um, and I always liked the faster or the swifter characters, so I mean, like I definitely enjoyed that, but um as I started expanding, I started noticing that there are certain friends of mine that were into Dungeons and Dragons or Magic, The Gathering. Um, my late uncle, he's into HeroClix, and then there's just so much. There's so much out there, right? I couldn't even begin to list it, but I had like this sort of crisis inside where I met with resistance from some people when I talked about being a gamer. And they're like, oh, really? Are you really a gamer? And it sucks that I'm being questioned. I think mostly because of my gender. Like, oh, are you really a gamer? Like, no, I could go hard on some of these games. Um, no, I played a lot. There's no number in my head. You lose track of it when you're really into something. Um, and I had people question whether I was really a gamer. And then also, they would question whether I was truly a gamer because I only played console video games. Like, that's the part that really threw me for a loop, that people can be very snobby about that, about the distinction between the different types of gaming. And I don't think everyone's like that, but I came across that and it was very frustrating because I was like, what's wrong with me not playing tabletop, or what's wrong with me not playing computer-based gaming? Like I prefer the console. That's what I liked. Um and I will say this. I did put someone in his place when I was hanging out with friends overnight, and the next morning my phone had died and we didn't have a charger, so one of my friends got a charger in the morning, so like I was charging my phone and I almost won against one of my best friends. And then my phone rang because my dad, like I told him, don't wait up for me, I'm going to be gone all night, but because I was still at home at the time. But he didn't. He left the light on. He was all upset. Like, where are you? I was like, I told you I'd be out all night. I will come back this morning. We're doing gaming. We're doing some stuff with friends, which we did. But my dad didn't believe me. So I was almost like, I was literally just about to beat my friend. And then the phone rang and I got distracted. I jolted and I hit the wrong button and I died. And then the next round, I like destroyed. So this guy behind me was like, oh, see, like you can't really do this, blah, blah, blah. So what he wanted to do is have someone distract me the entire next round. Yeah, I obliterated him. I was so laser focused. I was so pissed at him. I was just like, really, dude? Like, really? Okay, let's go. And so, yeah, I did. I obliterated him. I did it with the character he chose for me, too. I think it was Ooh, I wanna say it was, like, either Dead or Alive or Soul Calibur. I can't, it was, like, one of those 2. That or Mortal Kombat, or it was one of the fighting games, like, they had all 3 of those and another one that I can't remember the name of. Anyway, I won it against him using a character he chose for me, so, boom. Like, I was super excited about it. I was like, "Yeah, bragging rights." I mean, I couldn't beat some of the other players that were just way better than me, but I still got him. Um but that was some of the contention that I'd had, and then, later on, I had a friend who tried to get me into role playing, and I just couldn't do it, and I know that this person meant well. They saw how I am an avid reader, and I love going on adventures and books and literature, and how I, like, can really get into, a story, and that my mind itself takes like side quests all the time, and I branch off, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm into adventure. I'm into like fantasy and all that kind of stuff. I'm into sci-fi and all that. So they thought, well, maybe you would like this. Um, but when I couldn't get into it, like, they weren't trying to be malicious, I don't think, but the way that they sounded disappointed in me, like I wasn't a full gamer or something because I couldn't get into it, and it was just that one person. Other people who have tried to help me, break into role playing, um, they weren't like that. They were understandable, or understanding rather, like, they said, "Yes, it's understandable that not everyone can get into it." Me, it was more the pacing, like, I get, like, super focused on something, but then if the pacing slows too much, I get super bored, and then I start rambling or go to, like, I need to be occupied. If you cannot keep me occupied the entire time, it's very difficult. It's really hard, and I have tried many times over the years, and I just couldn't get into it. Oddly enough, I could watch someone playing, uh, not, like, fully for hours, but, like, I could, tune in every few minutes or whatever, because my mind is gonna space out, my mind's gonna do something else, as it does with movies or books, or whatever, like, my mind will start to wander, and then I'll have to take a moment, and then I'll have to come back, especially if there's a lull period, but I do enjoy watching people play, but I could never play fully. And it still upset me, even though it was that one person. This is like 2 decades ago, man, like, this is a while ago. This is from, like, high school and just, after high school, so, it's a long time ago. It's like 15 something years ago, okay? Almost 2 decades, and I still think though about that person who, they weren't overly, rude about it, but they seemed disappointed in me. Like I couldn't get into something that they also enjoyed. And it made me think, overly so. Like I was overthinking so much about this that maybe I'm not a real gamer because I don't, play all this different stuff, or maybe I'm not good enough because, and I was just spiraling, and eventually I stopped getting into console gaming, mostly because of my arm, because I can't, my arm starts to seize up, my wrist starts to seize up. And I do know that there's possible console designs, or like controller designs for people who do have like disabilities, where they are amputees or something like that, or they have issues with nerve damage or whatever. Like I know that that's out there. I don't know that it's a very widely researched or developed topic. But I know it exists because, some of my gamer friends who are still into gaming console wise, or, VR or whatever, like they mentioned it to me. They said, I know that you really used to love doing this, but you stopped over the years after your shoulder injury. So, maybe this is something you get into. Um, I could never get back into computer gaming either after Carmen Sandiego when I was a kid. This is like the late 90s, okay? So this is like 98, 99 when I did it. I don't remember the exact year. Maybe it was, I'm pretty sure it was 99 um is when I played it, because I don't remember when the game came out. Yeah, it was around then though. I know that because I was around 13 or just about to turn 13 years old, which I did in May of, 99. So, um anyway, so I mean, like, I know that years have gone by, and although folks have, been gracious to be like, hey, come play with us or whatever, and very welcome and opening, and eventually I just have to drop out because it's like, I can't, like, I'm trying, but I can't stay focused. I can't stay invested in this. I just get bored so easily, so quickly if the pace doesn't continue. Um, and I don't think it was the DM's fault. I don't. I think I'm just not into it in that way. Uh, but I still think about that one person who was disappointed in me, who acted like I just wasn't a good enough gamer, or I wasn't a true gamer because I didn't have a broad sense of, gaming accolades. I don't know. Accolades. D. Um, So I thought about that for so long, and it's just I still think about that sometimes, where I felt stressed, like I was missing out, like I wasn't doing what everyone else was, so I wasn't good enough. And that can be very destructive thinking. Um and there are people who love board games, just board games, not even like role playing or anything, just board games or card games. Like there are people who are really good at that stuff. I know someone who became really good as a poker player. Someone I knew in high school, like they became really good, like national level, like they were really good. And I'm just like, I don't think I could ever do that, but that's really awesome. I mean, are they any less of a gamer just because, and they played console games too, but are they less than simply because they play a different type of game? I don't think so. I think that the type of people who cause that sort of strife are looking to divide people. I really do. Because personally, I feel like whatever game type you're into, that's awesome. And you're not less than just because you don't play other kinds of games, or because you can't get into certain types of games like myself. Um, but the reason why this became a sort of topic again for me that started, living in my head again was sorry, I had to sneeze. I was like, I could feel the tingling. Um, the reason why this was brought up again when it came to gaming was because I was never into Pokemon cards. Like I loved watching the series. And as I got more into manga later, in my teenage years, I started reading some of that stuff. I was also really into Digimon as well. um, but Alan has gotten into Pokemon. Like he collects the cards. Now he can't read yet still. He's still struggling with reading, and we're still working on that. Um but so he can't like read the I got him like a Pokemon manual. I've been collecting Pokemon cards for him for a while. Um he doesn't have, I mean, yes, he loves Pikachu, but he also loves Mew and Mewtwo because of the movie. But other than that, he hasn't really picked a favorite Pokemon that I know of. He hasn't told me yet, but he collects the cards. And I'm just like, that's gaming too, right? Like I consider that gaming. Um, and then recently, because they have the program on the school laptops, he's gotten into Minecraft. He's really into Minecraft. He loves it. And I think about that. I think about how he will come to me and say like, mommy, I built this house, you want to see this? Oh, I can fly, you want to see this? Oh. And sometimes I'll hear him in the background like die cow die or something or whatever, or he's like, I will exact my revenge. And I was like, what are you exacting revenge about? He's like, someone burned my house down, I'm gonna burn their house down. I was like, why would you? It's just out of nowhere, right? um But then he'll want to show me his progress in Minecraft. Like, I did this, I did that. I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. I don't understand it. I'm not on there. Um, but he gets super excited, and I've started looking up like role-playing games, RPGs for kids. I started looking that stuff. I'm still in the beginning stages of my research, okay? So I'm not like an expert or anything, and I'm still like researching like what might interest him or pique his interest, because he loves a lot of the same nerd stuff that I do. I mean, he loves a lot of, like, Transformers and Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and Scooby Doo and Disney and Marvel and DC, and he's into all that kind of stuff. Star Wars. I haven't really gotten them into Doctor Who or Star Trek, but that's okay. That's okay. Like, I'm not like pushing that on, but because I watched a lot of Star Wars when both my kids were really young, they really got into that. Same way that I did, because my dad watched that a lot when I was a kid. So it was my late uncle who got me into Star Trek. Um, and eventually Doctor Who. So, but I started looking that stuff up because I thought, well, maybe this might interest him. I don't know that he'd be able to continue focus throughout playing it. I don't know, but I'm willing to look into it and eventually get like one of those games to see if he would like to do that. And I may become bored very easily. I don't think I'd be a really good DM. I'd be horrible, but I do want to look into the kind of stuff that you can start kids on, and I want to see if that's something that he could get into. I think that he is fairly outgoing. So I don't think it's like a social thing, like, oh, maybe we should do this because, you're not very social with kids. No, he's pretty social. He's got a lot of friends. Him and Connor are both very social, and they get invited to a lot of birthday parties. Okay. So my social anxiety is like wrung out, and I am, oh God, it takes so long for me to recharge after any of those instances. Like, I really don't like being in that situation, but I go to those birthday parties because my kids want to. So I suffer for them. I really do. Um, but I started looking into those kind of things for him because I thought maybe this is something he would like. I feel like it would help him with strategizing as well, and becoming a bit more independent as a thinker, a critical thinker, because he may socially, like, he may have lots of friends and he can interact with kids pretty easily. He's very open and very loving. So, I mean, is it any wonder that I've considered him more of like a Hufflepuff these days than what I originally thought when he was a kid, like a baby. I originally thought he was a Slytherin. Like, nope, I really think that Connor's actually the Slytherin in the family. And then Alan's more the Hufflepuff. But so it's not like a social thing, but I think that he needs work in self-confidence and critical thinking. Like, I know that he's smart and he can figure things out, but he doesn't believe in himself. He's very hesitant, and I feel like this might help him in a way to kind of, think through things and kind of become resourceful and creative about problems, like how to resolve it, to find a solution. And I think it might build his confidence. So I I may not be into RPGs because it's just I get bored too easily. And although I still feel sadness at that person who kind of seemed disappointed in me, um I don't want to show that to my kids. I want them to be confident and sure of themselves. And I know that I will also try to teach them that, hey, sometimes you fail, sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you fall down. But you can get back up. You can continue. That is possible. uh, so I want them to be confident, but I want them to be realistic, of course. But I feel like I want to build Alan's confidence. Connor's the more confident, okay? He's the more ambitious, confident, in your face. I'm doing this and I can do this by myself. So he's very independent already. Alan's more hesitant. He's unsure of himself, and I don't like that. I want to see him progress. I want him to have more confidence in himself. I know that he can do a lot more if he could. And honestly, it's not even that I want him to have like super great grades or to be like some crazy, genius scientist or something like that, or a doctor one day or whatever, because I know that some people want to promote confidence for those kinds of reasons. But for me, I want him to have confidence in himself. So whatever he decides to do, he can push himself forward. He can do this. And that if he were to fail or if he does make mistakes, then he says, all right, this happened, but I can learn from it and move forward. But I want him to have the confidence to do so. And he's still struggling right now with that. And so I'm kind of nervous about possibly doing some of those games with him where he's trying to learn from me. How do I promote confidence when I've never been into this type of gaming, when I've never been able to become interested in it long enough? So it's been this kind of internal struggle for the past while. Because I started thinking about this thing weeks ago, but I haven't been able to figure out how to verbalize it or say it out loud until now, I guess, which is why I started doing this video. So it's like I may be the kind of person who is, into a type of gaming growing up and tried to expand and it didn't quite work. And now I've got a kid who is super smart, super loving and outgoing, but doesn't have confidence in himself, and he's hesitant to to take that step. And I want him to be able to take that step and say, okay, yeah, there's this challenge. Yeah, there's this hurdle, but you can get through it. And I believe in you, but I want him to believe in himself. And how do you foster that when you struggle with self-confidence or you struggle with not being as invested in the thing that you're trying to present them with? And it's scary. It's scary because I'm not an RPG gamer. I'm not at all. I have a basic understanding of the concept and the outlay of rules, or so anytime I see memes about bards or like, oh, the bard of blah blah blah, or like you know like our party needs blah 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 because blah blah blah. So like any stats or anything like that, I have a basic general knowledge of that I can follow along fairly okay with. Anything more advanced, no, but sometimes I can understand it, and I'm kind of scared because it's like, how do I do this when I'm definitely not an expert on this? But I've also started looking up articles of other parents doing this kind of stuff or other people who are in this. And I've started reaching out to my friends who are into RPG. Just letting him know these are my fears, but I want to introduce Alan to it and see if that's something he would like. I think he would enjoy that. I think also once we've gotten through some of his struggles when it comes to learning to read, he may have more confidence from that too, because again, we're struggling. So he keeps mixing up sounds and letters in his, it's funny because he's tested for dyslexia, but he's not exactly dyslexic. I don't know the way that they described it to me. I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but they said he doesn't have dyslexia, but he has other struggles along with his ADHD. And so right now that's what we're trying to get through. So I have a feeling that once he can kind of read more confidently on his own, he may have a bit more confidence in that regard, but he still hesitates, thinking that he's not that smart, or he doesn't know the answer, or his mind is racing and going to all these different things and he can't think of the answer. He knows the answer, but he can't think of it right then and there, and so he will start to panic. And I want to help him learn how to problem solve in his head, so that if that were to happen, then he can get through it. But how do you do that when you are also struggling in that area in most cases? So, but the one thing that I hope to impart on him is that whatever type of games that he's into, it doesn't mean that he's not a gamer. Like, if you choose the type of games to play, then you're a gamer. And I mean, maybe you're a noob, maybe you're brand new, or maybe you're a seasoned veteran of it. I mean, but I don't think we should ever tear anyone down and say like, oh, you're not a gamer because what? Because we're not you? I mean, just because I don't play RPGs doesn't mean that and because I didn't, doesn't mean I I wasn't a gamer. I was a console gamer. I knew people who were strictly computer gamers, but that was awesome. Like, go them. But I just, that one person just stuck in my head, that one person. And I don't want Alan to ever feel like that. I don't want him to think, I know he's probably going to come across people who will be like that, who will test him and try to be like, oh, are you really a gamer? So it's letting him know that that's a reality, that you're going to come across people like that. But I don't want him to get stuck in his headspace like I did and think that he is not a gamer simply because he's not the same type of gamer as someone else. So I guess I'll let you know how it goes. I mean, I can't afford to get any of those kinds of like starter packs and stuff like that for him. But I'm still researching it right now. So hopefully by the time I actually have funds to, introduce this stuff, we'll see how it goes. But I hope that if you've ever gone through that where someone is trying to question you, like, are you really gamer? Like, just brush it off. Just don't listen to them. Like, you're a gamer. You may be a different type of gamer, but you're a gamer. So you're not less than because of that. And maybe you like certain games that other people don't. I've never been into first person shooter or, sorry, I sneezed again. It's getting much, much colder. I mean, yay, fall, but it's getting much, much colder. And it's like dipping down from 60s and 70s down lower, lower, lower. So it's starting to really get much lower. And I was like, I thought we weren't supposed to see some of these temps till winter, but okay, thanks. After the fairly hot summer, now it's getting really, really cold. Anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I don't know if I'll ever get back into gaming. I don't know. I might. I mean, I don't really have much time right now. I do some stuff on my phone. The color sorting kind of games, I like those because it helps it's like a very repetitive, mundane task that I don't have to think too hard on. But also strategizing. But it's like if I'm feeling particularly stressful about something else, I just get into that and just do that. So I'm like level 800 something on one of those color gaming, color sorting games where you have the little tubes and you have to move the same color with the same color until you can fill them all up with one color. So those are the type of games that I've been getting into. Or solitaire. Like I do everything like simplistically on my phone. Like I don't really do much as far as gaming. And I don't do anything online. The boys are not online. Any games that they do is through an app on their tablet, and they parental controls means they can't just buy something. I mean, not only because like I'm pretty sure they would have accidentally picked something, and that I'm like, I can't afford you to buy like $15 of whatever for this, but also because they get distracted easily by some of the ads. Like, ooh, look at that. And ooh, look at that. And, oh, I want this one too. And I'm like, do you have enough space? No? Well, then you're not getting that app. So sometimes we have to sit down and like, do you actually use that app? Do you actually use this app? No? Okay, let's clear up this space so I've had to do that 3 times now with both boys. So yeah. So anyway, this has been a topic that's been like stuck in my head, so I want to discuss it, and I'll let you know how it goes once I have the funds to, actually introduce Alan. Maybe he'll like it, maybe he won't, but I want to at least try. I may not be into RPG like myself, but I want to see if it's something that he would enjoy. I think he would, but we'll see. So anyway, hope everyone is doing well. Bye.